Hey guys, after about 10,000 years of being MIA, I finally returned to give you a video. The topic is gonna be on a show called Pancake. Low-key hard to believe, but it's turned 10 years old this month, and it's like the ancestor of pretty much every show on the Discovery Channel, so all you niggas better give it your respect. It's about a bunch of pirates in a scene on a dock or something. Everyone in the city is lame as hell, and only cares about themselves, so as you can imagine, life as you know it is high-key terrible. The show stars a boy named Pancake, whose parents pissed off and left him in the middle of nowhere cause they're ops. He's raised by a black woman in a whale's body. The boy lives in the whale's mouth like the psycho he is. Also, there's another nigga in the whale's mouth like they're running a train or something. He's a bum named Knuckles, who claims to be an adventurer or something, but he really just sits on his ass all day and does nothing. And there's a bunch of other lame ass characters too, like some psycho candy man and his made up family, or the ogre and the doctor, but they're not important so we don't really need to go over them. There's some minor plots about them wanting to go to some island made out of candy, but they barely do anything about it, so it might as well not be mentioned. So the first episode starts out with two weirdos racing each other, when suddenly the boy comes out of nowhere and declares the whale to be the fastest thing in existence. Then the whale leaves the two niggas to drown, when suddenly another person shows up and tells the main characters that they're not really about it. So after a bunch of nonsense, they get to the random guy's crib, and he's living like 100 years in the future compared to everyone else, cause he actually got the funds. So it turns out that the rich nigga has a plantation full of workers, building him a robot whale, and he's on the main character's asses because he has to prove to them that he has the fastest whale in existence. So the race starts out, and at first it seems like the whale is running laps on the robots. So the boy goes outside and starts handing out L's left and right to all the slaves, while Knuckles just stays indoors like the pussy he is. So after all that, the robot takes the lead, and the niggas start looking weak, but then the robot starts to fall apart because of a break on the plantation. So the boy and Knuckles take a net off the whale, and now she's the Flash again. Then they run into a bunch of monsters or something, and while the whale goes through it, the rich niggas had some of his slaves to get put in a blunt. Then the boy decides to save his ops for some reason, and at first you know they're feeling wavy, but then he starts to say some weirdo stuff, and they start looking at him like he's off one. So with the plantation out of workers, the rich man starts panicking because his robot is slowing down, and the boy's about to catch a W. Both the whales come in at the same time, so all the guys are confused and don't know who won, until the rich nigga says he brought a camera just in case, but it's really just some bum in a box. Anyway, the bum decides that the real whale won, so he draws that, and the rich nigga gets in his feelings, while the main characters get lit. Eventually all the rich nigga slaves join the Underground Railroad, and the niggas reflect on the day, and then some random shows up to challenge Knuckles. So as you can see, the show has shown very classic potential from the very first episode. The next episode we're gonna look at starts in a cave, where the boy and Knuckles are looking for candy. So the boy starts giving directions while Knuckles starts glitching, because he doesn't know his left from his right. Eventually they reach their destination and start orgasming at the thought of getting candy, until they open the door and end up at a laundromat. So it turns out that the boy couldn't tell his left from his right either. Then he starts tripping over it in his sleep, so the whale tells him to calm his ass down. Then the whale tells Knuckles to take him to school, or else she'll leave him to waste away on the streets. At first Knuckles isn't trying to do all that, then he sees the teacher, he's like never mind. So the class starts out with him trying to pipe the teacher, but she announces she's married, so Knuckles just goes ghost. But then she mentions candy and he reappears. So basically everyone in the class makes him look like a dumbass, and he exposes himself and starts tweaking. So after a day of L's, Knuckles breaks into the school to find candy, but then even the candy itself tries to piss off. Also it turns out that the teacher and the other students are just inanimate objects. So apparently the whole class, one of their ops was an octopus. But actually in the end, it turns out it was just the teacher doing the most in order to get them to know their left and their rights. Another episode starts out with the boy and Knuckles playing in the rain, when suddenly they notice that their bummy clothes have holes in them. Then a rich kid starts dissing them for being broke boys, so the boy gets in his feelings. Then he tries to finesse some diamonds left in the sewer by the rich kid, because he's a dumbass, he doesn't realize that he can't reach it, and he starts going off one. So 12 catches him and returns him to Knuckles the next morning, and they both decide to go on the sewers to look for the diamonds. Then they go around trolling rich people, and the rich people get in their feelings, and are led by the ogre, and decide to hose them like it's a civil rights movement or something. So the boy manages to take one diamond, while he and Knuckles get caught by 12. But it turns out that those weren't diamonds at all, and the rich kid was just capping, so the main characters get put in an invisible box, so they're not going to spread to the rest of the town. And this next episode we'll be going over, Knuckles is getting bitched by a bunch of sailors. So the boy tells Knuckles to catch a fade with him, and at first you know things are lit, then the boy gets tired of Knuckles' nonsense. So the whale tells Knuckles to take an L, which he does, but then the boy thinks he's the Hulk, and he can take on the sailors that bullied his OG. So once again the sailors hold Knuckles, but then the boy pushes one of them over, so he decides to quit life. So after seeing how lame Knuckles is, the whole town starts clowning him. So Knuckles tries to check the boy for talking crazy, but then the town gets on his ass for it. So after putting Knuckles on a stretcher, the boy gives him one final blow, like the bitch he is. So a couple episodes later, and Knuckles goes to take a piss, and then starts telling the boy about imaginary stories from his past. It turns out he just plagiarized them from some magazine, which the boy finds, so he decides to join the Navy in order to go on adventures. But when he actually gets there, he finds out that the niggas really ain't about it. So while doing servant work, the boy calls it lame, so they make him walk around. Then the boy tries to escape, but all his attempts are put in the dirt. Right before he considers jumping, the captain finds that there's a new recruits and tells the niggas to go back to the city they came from, which gives the boy hope that he can piss off. Of course, the new nigga is Knuckles, and they induct him into slavery, while the boy manages to escape. Then the boy attempts to free his big homie too, but the Navy niggas think it's an attack, and try to fire a cannon, but their linemen end up hitting themselves. Then the boy saves Knuckles and they piss off. Another episode is about the OG being the fear of the city. So the episode starts out with the boy and Knuckles doing the dash from some woman who's been doing the most, giving them a whole bunch of tickets she knows damn well they're not gonna pay. So they decide to go look for her boss, so he can tell her to piss off. Then they find out the mayor is the boss, but they can't do anything because the secretary told them to get lost. Then the Op and 12 catch them, and they try to put them in the pen, so they run to the mayor's office and find out nobody's there. It turns out the dumb niggas in the town never wrote a mayor in, so Knuckles makes himself the mayor, and all the niggas get in their feelings. Then he leaves the Op to get smoked in the water, and he tells the niggas to turn 12 into a pack. So after a long week of doing nothing, the niggas get on Knuckles' ass because he's lame as hell. So the boy tells him to let him become mayor so he can pardon him, but his OG is sick in the head, so he refuses to actually do anything. Then the Lichmon shows up to put him in their blunts, so the boy nominates himself mayor and tries to debate with Knuckles, but Knuckles starts throwing candy at niggas, and since they're all worthless, they start liking him. But then the boy starts saying the obvious, and the town starts to like him instead. But it turns out a dog won in the end, and he basically does nothing so well. So the next episode starts out with the boy trying to get Knuckles to go in the bar, but then he does something gross, and the witch tries to make him deal with it, but he says it was a phantom, and she lets him go for some reason. Then they get to the bar and finesse two niggas' drinks, and Knuckles claims it was a wraith, and nothing happens because the town's dumb as hell. So then the Candyman tries to talk to specters using a bunch of crystals, but it's clearly just a sicko that's projecting what he hopes happens to Knuckles in his mind. Then the boy tries to get Knuckles to bend over for some phantoms, but he tells him that it's not real, because when he was a kid nobody came to his lame ass birthday party. So the boy decides to go to some guy that sees wraiths to apologize for Knuckles instead. Apparently it turns out that the specters are real, and his ancestor shows up to tell him that he exists. Also, he's not a ghost and the boy's just dumb. You see, Knuckles has a dented skull, so he doesn't realize his birthday party was at his ancestor's house and not his own, and it was actually him that never showed up. So they make up for it by throwing him a party, and then and there some weirdo stuff happens, and the episode ends. In another episode, some doctor tells Knuckles that he's dust, and that puts him in his feelings. Then a bunch of fosters saw clowning him at a bar when a rando shows up and tells Knuckles that he'll never be a pack, so he pisses off. Then the rando tries to murk Knuckles, and the boy tries to help, but his big homie tells him to piss off. Then the rando puts Knuckles on a stretcher, and does a whole bunch of other nonsense, like make him stay up high during a thunderstorm. So Knuckles tells the boy to piss off one final time, but then the rando grows tired of life, and decides to sail a ship down a big ass hole in the ocean. And they find a volcano, but the rando is off once he thinks it's treasure, and makes Knuckles sail towards it. The boy finds the rando's underwear, and it turns out he's from an insane asylum, which will explain why he's doing the most all episode. So the rando and Knuckles reach the volcano, and the rando tells him to jump because he wants to add a body to his list. Then the boy shows up to confront the rando and tell him that he's not actually immortal. So the rando starts whiling and jumps in the volcano and gets turned into a thing of the past. In yet another episode, a bunch of limbs get trolled by Knuckles, and then he does an old woman dirty and wastes everyone's time by pretending to help them. But then the ogre saves the baby and gets treated like a hero, and Knuckles gets hurt because nobody cares about him, but he was practically asking for it, so I don't know what to be upset about. So Knuckles tries to send the boy to the next dimension, but he accidentally gets himself sucked too, like the bum he is, and the guys end up in the clouds. It turns out that there are pilgrims in the clouds or something, and they think Knuckles is their savior, but the pilgrims refuse to back their niggas up because one time they got schemed by Knuckles and blown into the clouds because he told them to pull his finger. Then Knuckles starts treating the pilgrim niggas like trash, and they make him their Führer. But then the pilgrim niggas got schemed again by Knuckles, so they try to put him on a shirt. So he and the boy piss off and make their way back to town. In the final episode, the boy is playing with the fish when the ogre shows up and tells him that the psycho has new candy. So they get it and start tripping off it. And after coming down from the high, the boy starts to feel fucked up, and the whale tells him to chill or else he'll become a fish. Then Knuckles convinces him to get more in order to satisfy their addiction. But the psycho tells them to piss off because he's only giving one per person, like for life. So they start dressing different, and the dumbass psycho falls for it, and they become full-fledged crackheads. Also by the next day, their feet turn to tails, and they get chased out the closed-minded town for being different. Then they go underwater and go to the bar there, but the boy says they need to stop eating candy, and the whole bar starts pressing them until a merman or something stick up for them. Then the mermen take them back to their frat house so they can learn all their ways, and after a minute, they tell them that they're ready to go out in public. Then they make them take off their shirts, but once they do, they all of a sudden become complete fishes. Then they go to the doctor, and it turns out that they have the flu or something, so after 2 weeks they go back to being human. Then they go back to land and take more of the psycho's candy and become like actual live action humans and get chased out the bar again. Also, it turns out the whale has changed too, so they all decide to piss off from the city in search of another, a lit end to a lit show. Overall, the show is very important in the history of animation. A lot of people that worked on this went on to create other shows that will set the trend for the last decade. Also, I know I've been gone for some time, but trust me, like I said in the Q&A, I got something special planned, so look forward to that, and always remember the ops are lame. Okay guys, make sure that when you subscribe you hit the notification button, because that lets you know whenever I make a new video, and as always, thanks for watching.